Courtney Bruns' informative speech. Have you ever found yourself worrying about an issue or anxious about an upcoming event? Whether we had a big test coming up, problems in a relationship, prepping for a big game, or whatever. As humans, we all tend to worry about something or another throughout our lives. But can you imagine always being burdened with your worries? Or do you ever realize that your worries have no purpose and you find yourself getting anxious for no reason at all? Maybe you do, or maybe you don't. Or maybe you know someone who may feel this way. Not all of us have an anxiety disorder, but most of us have been or will be affected by it. Whether we know someone who has it or eventually develops it is in the future, it is good to be well informed about this mental illness. Anxiety disorders are the most common types of disorders in America, and help is available for anyone who may have it. In my speech today, I will first describe what an anxiety disorder is and the different types of anxiety disorders that there are. Second, I will examine what causes an anxiety disorder. And then I will finally discuss the diagnosis and treatments for an anxiety disorder. First, it is important to know what an anxiety disorder is, a mental illness that can interfere and inhibit with an individual's life. There are several different types of anxiety disorders that all include feelings of intense and continuous fear and distress. The first type of anxiety disorder is a generalized anxiety disorder. Karen Bellinar, in Mental Health Information for Teens, describes a generalized anxiety disorder as someone who has excessive, or at least 6 months of unrealistic worry. They expect the worst, even when there are no signs of trouble, and they can't seem to relax. A person with generalized anxiety disorder may suffer from insomnia, fatigue, trembling, muscle tension, headaches, irritability, and hot flashes. The second type of anxiety disorder is a panic disorder. Richard Nagman of New Complete Medical Health Encyclopedia describes a panic disorder as someone who has recurrent attacks of intense fear or terror. And this person may have these attacks that are unexpected and may occur with no reason. The third type of anxiety disorder is obsessive-compulsive disorder, also known as OCD. Richard Nagman describes OCD as someone who has recurrent obsessions or compulsions. A person with OCD may reflect exaggerated anxiety or fears. They may have the realization that their thoughts are completely irrational, but that may not be enough to overcome it. Instead, they will engage in repetitive rituals or their compulsions. The fourth type of anxiety disorder is post-traumatic stress disorder. Richard Nagman describes post-traumatic stress disorder as someone reliving a traumatic event. They may suffer from mental, physical, and emotional distress, and someone with post-traumatic stress disorder may suffer from nightmares, memories, and vivid flashbacks. The fifth type of anxiety disorder is a phobia, and Richard Nagman describes someone with a phobia as someone who has an extreme fear of an object or a certain situation. Though there usually is no reason for this fear, it will lead to avoidance of that certain object or situation. And the most common phobia that someone may have is called a social phobia, meaning that they are afraid of certain type of social situations. It is good to know that anxiety disorder is a medical as well as a mental illness. Though the exact origin of this mental disorder is unknown, there is some biological basis and evidence to guide us to the cause. There are some situational or non-biological reasons someone may develop an anxiety disorder. Neil Eisenberg, in Human Diseases and Conditions, says that it may be genetic and anxiety disorders may run in the family. It also says that it may be caused by traumatic experiences or psychological conflicts. Recently, research on chemical imbalances in the brain has shown to be factors of anxiety, and Eisenberg describes the neurons or the nerve cells in the brain to communicate with each other, and neurotransmitters in neurons allow the neurons to communicate with each other, thus allowing the brain to function. Imbalances in neurotransmitters and serotonin often result in persistent anxiety, and serotonin is the chemical that sparks the fight or flight response in humans. The biological or chemical imbalances in the brain cause many symptoms, such as rapid heartbeat, jump in blood pressure, sweating, nausea, tremble, and hyperventilation, symptoms that occur in an anxiety disorder. Though living with an anxiety disorder is difficult, it is possible to overcome it with the right treatment. Someone who has or think they may have an anxiety disorder should seek help right away to deal with their emotions, feelings, or thoughts. Most people with an anxiety disorder undergo behavioral therapies to help deal with their worry in a more productive way. Neil Eisenberg describes one of these therapies as cognitive therapy. It is a form of counseling that helps people work to change their distorted behaviors and attitudes. And relaxation techniques that help with the breathing and the muscle tension. And relaxation techniques are exercises to help reduce stress by meditation. Medication is also usually prescribed to help but not cure one's anxiety disorder. Medication can help balance serotonin levels as well as relieve some of the symptoms. Though many people have or are affected by an anxiety disorder, not all disorders are the same. And anxiety disorders are just like any other illness with a biological basis. There is no cure for an anxiety disorder, but one can overcome it with behavioral therapy and medication. Anxiety disorders are the most common types of mental disorders, and everyone should be informed of it, for they themselves or a loved one may encounter it.
I don't know. You're gonna stop it? We can cut.